Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DEPA Privacy Sandbox Open House. Thanks for joining me today. If you're watching this, you're probably a technology service provider trying to figure out where to place your next big bet. You're evaluating opportunities, assessing markets, looking for that infrastructure play that could define the next decade. So let me get straight to the point about why we put this together. Right now, as we speak, there is a $10 trillion market opportunity that's completely frozen. Valuable data partnerships that cannot happen because of privacy regulations. And TSPs like yourselves are uniquely positioned to unlock this opportunity. This is not hype. By the end of the session, you'll understand why US has created a $5 billion market without solving the core trust problem, why India has about an 18 to 24-month window to build global standard for privacy preserving data collaboration. Let's dive right in. And I'm Hari Subramanian, a volunteer with iSpirit. Let's start with the scale. India has over 63,000 large enterprises, 750,000 medium and small enterprises, all with some sort of digital operations. Every single one of them, from Reliance to your neighborhood cloud kitchen, is sitting on valuable data. Now, what's changed in the AI era is all the public data has already been indexed and commoditized by the large language models. Wikipedia, research papers, public web content, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, you name it, they've all trained on it. That data gives you table stakes, but not a competitive advantage. The real differentiator, however, is private datasets. Enterprise transaction histories, MSME, customer behavior patterns, proprietary operational data, healthcare records, financial transactions. This is the data that actually creates unique AI capabilities. This is where the value is, the $10 trillion opportunity. McKinsey estimates that cross organization AI collaboration, companies actually working together on a private data set, represents a 10 trillion opportunity globally. But here is the problem 95% of these valuable data partnerships are completely blocked right now, frozen solid. Why, you ask? Privacy regulations. Now, in India, we call this the Digital Personal Data Protection Act or the DPDP Act. In Europe, it's GDPR. In California, it's TCPA. Different names, but the same fundamental problem. You cannot share, or enterprises cannot share personal data between companies without consent, controls, and accountability. What's been the enterprise response? Most just give up because that means the partnerships don't happen, the collaborative AI models don't get built, the insights stay unlocked, locked inside the organizational silos without being unlocked. Both large enterprises and MSMEs are stuck with this problem. Examples: banks cannot collaborate with fintechs, hospital networks can't work with pharma companies easily, retail platforms cannot partner with brands, not because they don't want to, because they can't figure out how to do it compliantly. And the financial upside to them for non compliance far outweighs the monetary gain today that they may get from the compliance. Let me just show you a few real examples of what's happening right now. So, the first opportunity, let's take retail media networks. Think about this. You've got companies like Reliance, Flipkart, Swiggy. They have millions of customers on their platforms and incredibly valuable purchase data. Brands, on the other hand, like your large ones, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, would pay huge money to target their ads based on that purchase behavior. What is the proof? Amazon makes $47 billion a year from retail media ads. Walmart makes another 3.5 million a year, no chump change. That's 2 lakh crores global market. But in India, we cannot do it effectively because Flipkart can't share customer purchase data with brands without violating DPDP. The data is there. The brands want it. The money is there, but the partnerships cannot be made. Let's take the second one, healthcare and clinical research. Pharma companies need to work with hospitals to understand drug efficacy. Insurers need clinical data to build better risk models. 30% reduction in fraud, dramatically improved patient outcomes, 1 lakh plus crore global market. That's the potential. But again, this market is frozen solid. Why? In the US, it's called HIPAA regulations. In India, it's DPDP regulations. All of it prevent hospitals from sharing patient records with pharma companies or insurers. Even when the data is de-identified, it could save lives. Everyone wants the collaboration to happen. Too risky, can't do it, not compliant. Banks, the third example, financial services, fraud detection. Banks, fintechs, payment networks, they all see different parts of the fraud picture. They did of the same customer. If HDFC, ICICI, Paytm, PhonePe could pool their transaction patterns together, they could build fraud detection models that would save, in an estimate, 40% more effective than anything that they have today currently. This is a global problem. $32 billion in fraud losses every year, $180 billion in compliance costs. In India alone, there is 30,000 crore market opportunity before you go global. But can banks share transaction data with others? No, cannot do it. RBI regulations, DPDP norms, competitive concerns. So here's the paradox you're facing. AI needs scale. Regulations require individual consent. These are two different things that are pulling in the opposite directions. And it's freezing India's entire data economy. That is the problem. But here is where it gets really interesting. The global privacy tech ecosystem has already validated that this demand is absolutely real. In just over 3 years, a $5+ billion market has emerged. Snowflake and Databricks, both massive data companies, have a thriving privacy data sharing practice. Snowflake's over $80 billion in valuation, and Databricks is over $43 billion in valuation. And LiveRamp, which is a specific confidential clean room provider for advertising, it makes over $1.5 billion annually in revenue. So we know companies will pay billions for this capability, and the demand has been proven and the market exists. The privacy tech ecosystem, on one hand, has made incredible progress in both in terms of technology infrastructure, confidential computing environments, hardware-based security, privacy-preserving computation tools, and the market, 5 billion, thousands of enterprises, paying customers, multi-billion-dollar companies. What is missing is a governance layer. No neutral governance frameworks established, no standardized privacy budget enforcement, no automated compliance through electronic contracts, no industry-wide audit trails, and vendor lock-in everywhere, creating trust barriers. Current solutions rely on individual vendor promises rather than systemic trust. The ecosystem proves the demand exists, but the governance gap still remains unsolved. If the market built $5 billion without governance, imagine the opportunity when governance gets baked in from day one. India is building what the ecosystem needs next, the missing governance layer. That is what DEPA does. Now, let me show you what changes with DEPA, data empowerment and protection architecture. Before DEPA, you had data providers and data consumers, and the data sharing was frozen rock solid because of some of the constraints that we just talked about. No ability to collaborate without violating some of these regulations, or very expensive work that has to be done to enable this collaboration. We are creating this middle layer. That's the technology service provider layer, the TSP layer. That is you. That is the opportunity we are discussing today. What the complete stack looks like. You have your infrastructure layer that's already been built by ecosystem that you can build on top of, which includes confidential clean room infrastructure, hardware security environments, both available as baked into chips from AMD and Intel, and computation on encrypted data, privacy tooling like differential privacy frameworks, software frameworks, secure enclaves, trusted execution environments, cryptographic protocols. Companies like Snowflake, Azure, AWS offer a lot of these things as part of their standard tool set. DEPA does not replace, but it builds on top of a lot of this innovation. Now let's talk about the governance layer. That is India's innovation with DEPA. SRO governance, a self-regulatory organization which takes care of standard setting, provider accreditation, compliance enforcement frameworks, electronic contracts, automated auditable agreements, machine-readable data usage terms, and programmatically enforcement. Audit and compliance, real-time monitoring of all data sharing activities, immutable audit logs, automated regulatory reporting, and finally, benefit sharing, fair value distribution, transparent economics, and the ability for some of the benefits from these data sharing to be directly transferred back to the end customer. Some of these concepts have been introduced in previous open houses, and I will put a link to that, very accessible, so you can check it out if this is the first time you're hearing concepts like electronic contracts or privacy preservation techniques like differential privacy. So do check that out. Now, why do both of these layers matter now? Infrastructure without governance is great technology, but the trust barriers remain. And governance without infrastructure is rules, but no way to actually enforce them. And infrastructure plus governance together, that is trustworthy data collaboration at scale. That's been the mantra of techno-legal from all of India's digital public infrastructure. DEPA doesn't compete with the existing infrastructure providers. Instead, you build your CCR on existing compute, you add DEPA's governance layer on top, you get certified by the SRO, and you offer trusted, compliant collaboration at scale to enterprises. This middle layer, the TSP layer with governance, is your opportunity as a TSP. Now, let's get specific about what are the actual business opportunities. There are 5 different ways that I have sort of enlisted amongst, these are the top 5 ways in which confidential clean rooms can be used. We call these modes. Each mode represents a different quickly so you can actually see the full spectrum. Mode 1 is training brand new models. So let's say the example here is 3 banks building a joint credit risk model. And the use case is sort of multi-party collaborative model training. And some of the sensitivity here is the highest because you have multiple data sources coming together to build a brand new model. The second mode is fine-tuning of existing models. Example here is a pharma company, say, fine-tuning a llama model for drug research and enhancing a pre-trained model that potentially somebody else has with their data with proprietary data from this pharma company. Also pretty high in terms of data sensitivity because you have models and data coming together from multiple providers. The third mode is privacy preserving inference. An example here is an instant buy now, pay later or checkout financing loan that is available for consumers. This is real-time prediction without exposing raw data, and it involves personal data of that one consumer getting to the CCR for doing the inference at scale. Let's say that's medium in terms of data sensitivity. Mode 4 is what we call a contextual inference using RAG or retrieval augmented generation. Think of the use case here as a legal AI assistant that you could build, querying confidential case law from private data sets that a law firm may have. And retrieval augmented generation actually uses these sensitive documents that are only privy to that particular law firm, and without exposing any of the client secrets that are there to be able to build such a AI model and therefore a business. The mode 5 is what we call exploratory analytics. Exploratory analytics happens today at scale because people sort of are analyzing data sets to find market trends, anomalies, and all that. Think of the example here as, say, a retail consortium that wants to provide aggregate data sets so that their data scientists or data analysts can do market trend analysis, and this aggregate analytics and business intelligence can be widely used. This sort of use case already happens, but of course, so it's much lower in sensitivity because a lot of this is public data sets, but this can still happen securely without business secrets getting leaked inside a CCR. Each one of these modes represent a market that is worth at least 100 crores today. And you don't have to play in all 5. You pick the one that matches your expertise, your capabilities, and your existing current customer relationships the best. Now, let's go deep into 3 of these 5 so that we could actually discuss some concrete business opportunities. So let's look at mode 1 first, which is multi-party model training. Mode 1 is a premium infrastructure play. This is for those of you who want to become, say, the snowflake of India eventually, but with governance baked in. Let's take a real use case of 5 banks who want to build a joint fraud detection model. Think about it. Bank of Baroda sees certain transaction patterns. HDFC sees different patterns. ICICI sees other patterns. Each bank probably on their own catch 60% of the total fraud that happens. But together, they could catch 95% of the fraud and cut losses by 30 to 40%, not just for themselves, but for each other and the entire industry. The problem is no bank will share their raw transaction data with their competitors. It's proprietary, it's sensitive, and it's regulated by RBI. Now, how can confidential clean rooms solve this? Each bank encrypts their data set, maybe takes 10 million customer records, transaction history, fraud labels, and ingests this into CCR. They send this data to a CCR. Only the CCR can decrypt it. And the key for decryption is actually controlled at all times by the bank. Only after cryptographically verifying that the environment is secure is this key actually vended out. So this is hardware rooted attestation. We talked about AMD and Intel having these primitives baked in. So it's not software promise, it's a hardware enforced promise by the CCR. Inside the CCR, your data gets combined. Model gets trained using differential privacy, which is a mathematical guarantee that no individual customer record can be memorized by the model when it's taken out. Now, once the model gets trained and it leaves the CCR, banks cannot download their data because the CCR itself is ephemeral and it vanishes, but the model weights extracted in the training process are guaranteed by the CCR to not contain any private information that's retrievable even during inference. What's your TSP opportunity? We believe it's like a 1 to 5 crore per year per bank consortium revenue model. The target market is not just banks, but extends to insurance companies, payment networks, And the value proposition is 30 to 40% fraud reduction in this particular use case and billions in savings for your customers. So you can actually have a healthy margin that comes out of that. Total market is 30,000 crore market in terms of fraud detection and anti-money laundering technology globally. And you get to break even with 8 to 10 enterprise clients, and it's a fairly large market for you to go and play. And the addressable market is over 5,000 large enterprises that actually need this capability today. What's your moat? You're not just selling compute. You're selling trusted governance. That is the moat that global players today don't have. And mode one can extend outside of just financial services vertical. Look at the same pattern that actually happens in other sectors. Healthcare, 3 hospital networks, and they want to build joint patient outcome prediction combining their data. Regional retailers that actually want to build collaborative models and do better demand forecasting for each other. Logistics, transportation companies that actually are regional players, but then want to do a global route optimization across the nation. And the manufacturing, industrial consortiums that want to get together and do predictive maintenance of sort of various manufacturing facilities. Telco operators want to sort of build build models that actually jointly improve network quality and customer churn that can be prevented. All of these, each of these vertical is 100 to 500 crore market opportunity if you sort of come from that vertical. Wonderful. Let's go to mode 2, which is what we call enterprise LLM fine-tuning. Mode 2 is probably your fastest path to actual revenue if you're already in the cloud or in the ML ops space specifically. So let's think of this two-party problem. So the common scenario that gets blocked today, say party one, that is a healthcare AI startup, has proprietary clinical AI model. They have spent 5 crores developing the model weights and architectures of their intellectual property. They don't want to share this model and run the risk of somebody reverse engineering their intellectual property. Party two could be a large hospital network, has valuable patient data, 10 million patient records. They just won't share this raw data due to DPDP compliance, and you can also extend this to a global hospital network that wants to have HIPAA compliance, right? And the hospital now wants better AI predictions for their doctors so that they could sort of make their operations efficient, improve their the services for their customers or for their patients. What's the standoff? The hospital won't send the data to the AI company owing to privacy and regulatory risk. And the benefit that they get probably doesn't outweigh the risks that they have in terms of their customer data getting shared, patient data getting shared. And the AI company will not share their model, just fearing IP theft risk, and the partnership remains frozen. The solution, fine-tuning such models inside the secure enclave like a CCR. So the use case is a healthcare AI company and the hospital network get together. The AI company uploads their data. So the encrypted proprietary model along with the model weights that are there inside the model into the CCR, and the hospital never sees the model weights or the architecture of their AI model. The hospital, on the other hand, encrypts the patient records into the CCR, and the AI company never gets to see the raw patient data ever. Fine-tuning of this model happens inside the CCR. Model gets fine-tuned on hospital data, and the differential privacy applied during training. Neither party sees the other's intellectual property or data at any point in time. The fine-tuned model, when it's taken out, it could be taken out either by the hospital for doing inferences for them within their patient network, or it could be taken out by the AI company, where the new model is actually trained with additional data from this hospital network. And the AI company gets, if they license this, they get ongoing license revenue from the hospital. The hospital gets better predictions for their patient population. The AI company can monetize the data without revealing the IP. That's, say, 20, 30 lakhs of licensing revenue for them. And the hospital gets to build a custom AI model from their data without privacy leak for maybe 30 lakhs spent, instead of spending 3 crores on building this in-house and waiting for however long they have to in order to build this themselves. Both parties' IP and is protected using hardware enforced boundaries that the CCR lays out. Your TSP opportunity is, so the target market for you is AI and ML companies with proprietary models seeking customers, enterprises with valuable data seeking better AI products for their own customer base. And you can go find these use cases across legal tech, fintech, healthcare, and any vertical that specifically has sensitive data and regulations probably have this problem. Market size is over 1 lakh crores globally. Revenue model is 10 to 15 lakhs per year per partnership that you could sort of charge for hosting and operating these infrastructures as a TSP. And this works because the CCR creates a neutral ground where model provider protects their IP, data provider protects their privacy. Both parties get to build valuable AI models for you with this collaboration, and you capture the margin by enabling this trust. This is recurring revenue with clear value proposition because the problem keeps happening with new data sets and new improved models. Every AI company wants more customers. Every enterprise wants better data. The pattern keeps repeating. CCRs unlock these partnerships that are frozen today. 2,500 crore market for TSPs to go after. Let's go to mode three. Mode three is real-time inference. In fact, mode three is where you make money at scale. This is real-time privacy-preserving inference. Let's picture this customer experience. You are a shopper on Flipkart, and at checkout, you see that, hey, get this instant credit for this purchase. You click yes. Behind the scenes, a bunch of magic happens, and you get beautiful, highly tailored, custom credit that is built for you by a fintech. How does it happen actually? Flipkart, in your case, sends this encrypted payload to the CCR. What does that payload entail? Your purchase history, card value, maybe some demographic data. And the CCR processes this data, decrypts the data, enriches that with a fintech partner of Flipkart that wants to enrich this data with their existing credit model. That includes credit bureau scores, payment history. They run the credit model and return a highly personalized, personally crafted offer for you for 15,000 rupees. Now, the difference is without this additional data from Flipkart about your purchase history or your demographics or various information, the fintech partner may not have been able to underwrite you or offer you the offer that they were able to offer you. On the flip side, Flipkart probably does not have access to a fintech license or the ability to sort of underwrite you and offer you checkout financing. This is mutually beneficial, in fact, for all three parties, because Flipkart actually gets better conversions for their cards because they now were able to offer credit and it was an instant checkout instead of you having to go through the payment process. The CCR provider actually, or the fintech partner actually gets to now underwrite you at with better data. Therefore, they can actually give you, they can lower the risk profile of the customer with this additional information. And finally, you as a consumer get access to a product, a financial service product at a much lower cost. And this would not have been possible without this data collaboration. Key points in this collaboration: Flipkart never sees the credit bureau data because RBI wouldn't like it. Fintech never sees the raw purchase history because DPDP would not like it. And customer data is deleted after the inference because CCR itself is ephemeral and the data goes poof. Every transaction is logged with proof of consent. And the beautiful architecture behind this, what we call delayed consent, is actual consent from the customer is not acquired for data sharing until the point the value actually gets delivered. So once the customer accepts the offer is when they can now go ahead and consent to share some of this additional information, which allowed the fintech partner to be able to underwrite you. And then that consent, with consent, the data goes so that the fintech partner can actually complete the transaction. Without this sort of infrastructure, it would take months, if not multiple weeks, before which the fintech and the data partnership has to happen on a regular basis, where they can do batch inferences of this data, enrich the data, and do pre-approved offers. That's the old way of doing it. Now, CCR unlocks a brand new way of doing pre-approved offers with instant approvals and delayed consent architecture. Your TSP opportunity, think of this as 50 paise to 2 rupees you get to charge per inference depending on the size of the loan. And volume economics play out. 1 million inferences a day means that you get to make 30 lakhs a month of recurring revenue. And that's just from a single CCR deployment. What is the market? Amazon makes $47 billion annually on ads. Walmart makes $3.4 billion annually. Total market is 2 lakh crore of global retail media market. Your entry point is if you're already running an API infrastructure for payment or credit, this is your natural extension. Same pattern, just with privacy baked in, that converts your traditional BNPL loans or pre-approved loans into the modern CCR variant, which is privacy preserving and delayed consent with instant approvals. Massive wins for everybody in the ecosystem. Now, we've already looked at these opportunities in the way of these modes of data sharing. But if you're a CCR provider, or if you're a TSP, you're looking at what sort of business do I want to build, right? What sort of business can I build? So let's talk about these in terms of problems and solutions and get practical with where do you specifically as a TSP fit in? What is your entry point? So we have three different personas of TSPs identified, into three tiers. The personas are infrastructure providers, platform providers, and tooling providers. Let's look at each of these tiers and what is the opportunity that we see in each of these three tiers. Tier one is an infrastructure provider, or we call them CCR operators. The opportunity we see here is becoming the snowflake of India, but you're building the CCR orchestration platform sitting on top of cloud infrastructure. You're not building the data center from scratch. That's a much larger capital intensive opportunity, which we'll talk about as well by the end of talking about tier one. What you're actually building is CCR orchestration and a management platform built on top of Azure Confidential Compute, AWS Nitro Enclaves, GCP Confidential VMs. The cloud providers have already baked in some of these things for you in their infrastructure as a service layer. The DEPA compliant governance layer is what you bring to fruition with SRO certified operations. Think horizontal platform that runs on the IaaS, not owning the physical hardware itself. Who should play? Cloud native infrastructure companies, ML ops companies, and cloud ops companies, platform engineering teams who probably have come out of Azure or GCP operating infrastructure at scale and want to start a company. Security focused SaaS companies who already serve security, provide security operations for on top of cloud can extend their market into CCR. If you know how to build on top of Azure, AWS, and add governance and orchestration, this is your play. This is your infra play. The capital required maybe 5 to 8 crores in terms of software development, CCR platform orchestration. If you're a startup, all the cloud vendors throw credits at you to get you bootstrapped. So otherwise, cloud infrastructure rental, of course, SRO governance process, certification process, cloud security audits and compliance. Initially forming the team with engineering, security, ops capabilities. That's the investment. Market size is 3,500 crore over 5 years. You get to break even 18 to 24 months because there is not a capital intensive play here for you. 60 to 70% margins because you're actually not selling hardware. You're not selling infrastructure. You're selling highly valuable privacy compliant, DPDP compliant infrastructure that is high margin for you. If you have questions, go look at what Habu and LiveRamp do in the US and what margins they actually have on top of commodity infrastructure. If you want to own physical data centers, eventually that also is a play with specialized hardware that can happen out of this business model. Eventually, that's a 50 crore plus capital play. Most TSPs will probably want to build on existing cloud infrastructure here, and that is tier one for you. So tier two is your persona is typically a platform provider or a data collaboration platform. The opportunity here is create the LiveRamp for healthcare, fintech, retail, or even marketing. LiveRamp is primarily a marketing play. Build the marketplace that connects data providers with data consumers in a specific vertical of your expertise. Who should play? B2B SaaS companies that want to build a data company in that vertical. Vertical specialists, if you're already a solutions provider or a software IT solutions provider for one of these verticals, you could sort of extend and do a value-added play on top of your existing solution. If you already have relationships in banking, healthcare, retail, and you're serving those enterprise customers, you could now provide a data collaborative platform for them because you already are deeply familiar with their business. Capital required is 2 to 4 crores. The market 750 crores over 5 years. You get to break even 20 to 30 months down the line, and with still fairly large margins because you're going from providing non-differentiated solutions to highly differentiated data collaboration platforms, 50 to 60% margins. The third play is, in my opinion, a startup play, right? You get to build, you're the tooling provider, right? The differential privacy tooling, SDKs, monitoring, and you get to be the data dog for CCRs. The opportunity is building the data dog layer with monitoring, creating differential privacy engines, SDKs, monitoring platforms, audit tools that everyone needs in the ecosystem. Who can play? Like I said, security startups, dev tool companies. If you're providing any of these monitoring tools, if you're providing compliance to these sectors today, you have a natural play, right? And if you're building infrastructure tools today for enterprises, you have a natural play here. This is a very small, the capital required is much smaller, 50 lakhs. You could get started, or even lower to 2 crores. Market size is 1,200 crores over 5 years. You get to break even much sooner, 12 to 18 months, because you just have to find the first 2 or 3 customers who want to deploy your infrastructure, and who want to deploy a CCR infrastructure, and you are providing the visibility and the observability dashboard for them, the compliance tools, and how to sort of monitor and manage this at scale. You are the provider of those tools, and you still have a fairly large margin, 70 to 80% in this case. The entire ecosystem, we believe, is 11,000 crore ecosystem. And the core 3 tiers over 5,500 crores. But here is where it creates, from 5,000 crores, it becomes a much larger with adjacent ecosystem services like data marketplaces, integration services, consultancies that help enterprises deploy these CCRs, compliance and legal infrastructure, firms that navigate regulatory requirements and sort of provide consulting services there, training and certification, educating developers and data scientists so that they can get onboarded into these CCR infrastructure to be able to securely deploy them. That's a massive market. Vertical solutions, like prepackaged solutions for specific use cases. The total ecosystem, we believe, is going to blossom into 11,000 crore ecosystem over 5 years. 150 players across these core 3 tiers we talked about, over 200 players that could actually come in with adjacent services that we talked about. The real question is not whether this market exists. We already talked about how that's a $5 billion market in the US. The US has proven this to be a $5 billion in revenue market. The question is, are you going to be one of these ecosystem players? And that's a decision for you to make. So now let me tell you why this is bigger than just the Indian market. So let's go back and look at India's DPI track record. India has had 2 major waves of digital public infrastructure that has gone global. The first wave is the identity stack, the Aadhaar 1.4 billion Indian identities, and most of which is the open source framework, which has now been adopted. That came from the learnings that India had from Aadhaar, but open sourced for the world, for the global south to adopt, adopted by over 12 countries today, including the likes of Philippines, Morocco, Ethiopia, Guinea, and that are all using the innovation of Aadhaar which is India's identity infrastructure. Wave 2, which is UPI and open commerce. UPI is now live in Singapore, UAE, Nepal, Bhutan, expanding to over 50 countries, and ONDC is starting to break platform monopolies globally. Wave 3 is happening right now, and we believe that is the data wave, DEPA for AI. This might be the biggest of all 3 waves, and the entire world is actually struggling at a point where they're struggling with the same problem, which is how do you unlock value from from private data sets with privacy preserving technology in a time where AI is sort of the biggest differentiator for AI is going to be private data sets itself. Every country with strong privacy regulations face these problems. Europe's GDPR created the same data freeze over 27 countries. California CCPA blocks partnerships between tech companies. Brazil's LGPD prevents healthcare financial services collaboration. Singapore's PDPA creates barriers in ASEAN's most advanced economy, and Japan's APPI makes cross-organization AI difficult. Different laws, same underlying problem. How do you enable AI collaboration without leaking privacy while protecting the privacy of the individual? We see 3 global approaches today. The US platform model, the state-sponsored, state-driven model that sort of China has been adopting, and India's public-private partnership model. In the US model, private companies, VC-backed, and it's always been private innovation, and that's the platform model. The strength of this model is innovation-driven, 5 billion plus proven market, and platform lock-in. No neutral governance, fragmented state regulations, all actually weaken this model and slows down adoption. It's still a large market, but a lot of smaller players have trouble breaking into this market. An example, Amazon and Chase Bank can very easily make a partnership and build a joint credit card. Not so easy for a smaller fintech and a regional bank or a non-commercial bank in the US to do the same partnership. The China model, which is centralized state coordination, very efficient, rapid deployment, limited global adoption potential because of the nature of. And finally, the India model, which is a government industry collaboration model that is rooted on open standards that are globally replicable, public-private partnerships that actually enable a much stronger foundation, SRO frameworks that balance innovation and governance, and the proven DPI track record that is adopted over 12 countries today. The India's approach fills this gap between the US innovation and the need for governance. We are providing the missing layer that makes data collaboration technologically possible and trustworthy under various privacy regimes. Your global expansion path as a TSP looks like this. Phase one, in the next few years, build in India, get SRO accredited, prove the platform with Indian enterprises, build reference implementations, and then export the same technology to privacy regulated markets. In Europe, it's GDPR compliant collaboration over €1 billion plus market. Singapore's ASEAN hub looking for trusted infrastructure. Already we see several Indian fintech startups going from India to Singapore on the back of UPI and other technologies. Brazil, fast growing market with LGPD creating similar needs. Japan, advanced economy seeking privacy preserving solutions. And phase three, become the global standard. Your SRO certification becomes recognized internationally, built in India, certified by the SRO becomes a trust signal. You're licensing your technology to over 50 countries. So your 2027 plus pitch to the European enterprises can look something like this. We pioneered privacy preserving data collaboration in India. Pick any tier, any mode that we discussed. We have over 500 customer deployments in India across enterprises and mid-market. We are certified by India's SRO, which follows the same privacy principles as GDPR. We can make you compliant with enabling AI innovation. That certification will be worth millions to international contracts. The strategy is India isn't competing with US or China. We're providing the governance layer, which is the missing gap in this that the world needs, compatible with privacy standards globally, such as GDPR, CCPA, PDPA, and others that we talked about. Built in India, exported everywhere. But the window is 18 months. After that, others will have established their own approaches and you will be adopting their standards instead of setting them, because the AI innovation wave is actually the largest wave that you've seen in a long time across the globe. Now, let me give you the unicorn math because that's really important to understand as well. Let's look back in history and look at what happened with UPI. UPI launches in 2016. Everyone was skeptical. Indians won't trust digital payments. The infrastructure is not ready. Why would banks adopt it? Why would anyone be using this? But there are a few players that actually saw this early. JustPay, a native Indian brand, bet on payments middleware. PhonePe, bet on the consumer app. BillDesk was already positioned. Razorpay built the developer platform. 2020, UPI becomes a national standard. And the 2024 results, JustPay is $1.5 billion company. PhonePe is $12 billion. BillDesk is $4.5 billion exit. Razorpay is $7.5 billion. The total $25 billion plus from one DPI technology. What will happen to DEPA 2025 to 2030? 2025 DEPA launches. We are here right now. Some of you have bet big on CCR infrastructure or sector platforms, right? That is where we could be in 2026. 2028, DEPA could become the global standard. And in the projected value creation could be where CCR infrastructure players could be a $5 to $10 billion market. Sector platforms like financial services, AI, medical could be a $2 to $5 billion each for each of those sectors. And model marketplaces could actually have potential unicorns. Vertical platforms, $500 million to $2 billion each, could be a total of $50 billion in value creation that happens over the next half a decade to a decade. The critical difference is UPI faced established competitors. Stripe was building globally. PayPal had massive scale. Players had to compete with incumbent giants. DEPA is filling an open gap. The governance layer does not exist at scale globally in any country today. Infrastructure exists, but lacks the neutral governance framework. You're building what the ecosystem actually needs next. That's the opportunity. The infrastructure is proven. Governance gap is real. India is positioned to fill it. You're not competing with infra players. You're completing the tech stack that there is a gap in. Your decision point is build now. You're the JustPay. You're the PhonePe. Wait until 2028, where you're a Me Too player fighting for table scraps. The stakes is that the window is open for the next 18 months. After that, category leaders will have been established. You will be paying them for access, not be one of them. So instead of owning the infrastructure itself. All right. So you're convinced this is real, but how do you actually get started? We have designed a 3-phase onboarding journey that takes you from foundation to full certification. And it works whether you're building a CCR service provider, infrastructure, platform, or tooling. Phase 1 is foundation. This is where everybody can start. We will cover mode 1, which is one of the complex modes in detail. which is multi-party model training. You go through the orientation, which covers DEPA fundamentals, CCR basics, deep dive on mode one, then the technical deep dive in terms of security audits, integration testing, the real technical specs, implementation into how you deploy a test environment, run pilots with customers, document your setup. At the end of phase one, you're ready for phase two. No certifications yet, but this is hands-on learning with the DEPA code base and the platform infrastructure. You've gained real mode one experience as well as you go through phase one. Phase two is expansion. We add mode two, fine tuning, mode four, which is RAG. You learn architectural patterns, sector specific use cases, governance frameworks. You run production pilots across multiple modes. You can start onboarding real customers. And here's the key milestone, the SRO certification for modes 1, 2, and 4. This is your competitive mode. The certification tells the market you're not just claiming to do privacy preserving AI, you're certified and verified by an independent regulatory body. Phase three is full stack. You add mode five, which is exploratory analysis. You master complex multi-party scenarios, advanced privacy techniques. You move to full production deployment and scale operations. And the milestone here is that you get fully certified across all 5 modes. At this point, you're a category leader. You can handle any DEPA use case and scenario with privacy preserving data sharing, and you could also export this globally. Now, this journey is the same whether you're a CCR service provider, infrastructure, contract services, building platforms, or tool enabler, building SDKs and monitoring. We have structured this in a way that you'd sort of get a broad understanding of all of these. The modes sort of are the same. The certification path is the same. What differs is, what are you certifying? Are you certifying an infrastructure? Are you certifying a platform that enables multiple use cases or industry-specific use cases? Or are you a tool provider and you're sort of certifying yourself as a provider of that service? For data providers and consumers, the enterprises who will use this ecosystem, you can participate in these phases as well. And no certification is required because you may be, unless you also want to be a self-certified TSP for yourself, but you're learning how to collaborate securely, and this can be great. And this is sort of customer development for the TSPs. Starting today, you can get technical documentation, the SRO checklist, customer discovery scripts, templates, access to all of this, and the open source work that the DEPA community has been putting together in this techno-legal framework and the community itself, right? So that you could ask questions, clarify, find partners. We are here to help. The next cohort begins very soon. We'll be announcing the dates soon. The first 30 participants will go through this together, and they will have at least a 6-month lead and a head start over the next cohort. So start now or watch others build the category while you actually wait. Let me fix that. So let me end with where we actually started. The frozen data economy, as we speak, is thawing right now. The 10 trillion Indian opportunity is real. The US market has proved a $5 billion revenue market exists, even though the trust issue remains unsolved. The $50 billion global export market is waiting. 50 plus countries will need this infrastructure. India is positioned to build the standard. The question is not whether this will happen. The US market, the regulatory environment, the AI adoption curve, all of it says that this is inevitable. You're going to need private data sets to unlock value at scale. The question is, will you be the one building it, or will you buy from someone who already built it in 2028? So the facts are that the first 5 SROs accredited to be CCR operators will probably own nearly 80% of the Indian market. That's not speculation. That's just how infrastructure markets typically work. Network effects, trust accumulate over time, and it compounds, and it typically favors the early movers. The first 3 sector platforms will become category leaders, right? By the time competitor 4 or 5 enters, the market will have standardized around the first movers. And first movers may also get the ability to set the global standard. When privacy preserving data collaboration becomes standardized globally, the governance frameworks developed here will influence how it's implemented worldwide. The clock is ticking. Applications for SRO accreditation are open right now. This is your UPI moment. The only question is whether you see it. So it's your move. So I want to close this by saying thank you all for joining me in this open house today. All the resources that I mentioned are available, and I'll be linking them to this video. Technical documentations, access to open source code bases, SRO application guides, how to get access to the community to get your questions answered, link to this deck. All of this is available for you to consume. We will be announcing monthly open office hours for technical questions. If you want to find partners, discuss your use case. So another open house is coming soon. Typically, it's going to be subsequent ones are going to be based on deep dives into technical implementation details and use cases that we are seeing in the market feel free to sort of bookmark this so that you can dial into those open houses as well. And we'll also be announcing one-on-one consultations so that you could get access to the DEPA community and the technical experts here, so that if you want to discuss your use case, you're able to do that. The window is 18 months. The opportunity is generational. I hope to see you building in this space. Thank you, and signing off. This is Hari Subramanian. I am a volunteer at iSpirit.